Marjorie Taylor Greene is now getting backlash from the very people who've enabled her. The Republican Party is livid with some of the disgusting tweets that she's put out there in regard to mask wearing and how she's decided to compare that to the Holocaust of the Holocaust of Jewish people. And so let's remind you all of what that insanity looked like before I give you the backlash that, of course, leaves out the fact that these lawmakers enabled her. Watch.
This woman is mentally ill. You know, we can look back in a time in history where people were told to wear a gold star, and they were definitely treated like second-class citizens, so much so that they were put in trains and taken to gas chambers in Nazi Germany. And this is exactly the type of abuse that Nancy Pelosi is talking about.
You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course, it's justified, gets a lot of backlash for those statements. But what about the guy who's like aggressively nodding his head as she's saying the most ridiculous thing? Anyway, let me get to what House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy had to say about this. He says, Marjorie is wrong, and her intentional decision to compare the horrors of the Holocaust with wearing masks is appalling. The Holocaust is the greatest atrocity committed in history. At a time when the Jewish people face increased violence and threats, anti-Semitism is on the rise in the Democrat Party, he says, which is ridiculous, and is completely ignored by Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Americans must stand together to defeat anti-Semitism and any attempt to diminish the history of the Holocaust. Of course, unless Donald Trump engages in that kind of rhetoric, then it's okay. That's my addition to his statement. But let's keep it real. Donald Trump's anti-Semitism was not a problem for the Republican Party at all. I did not hear Kevin McCarthy speak out against it. I remember one of the speeches that Donald Trump gave, he felt the need to refer to the Jewish members of that audience as individuals who love making a good deal. You know, leaning in on some of those tropes that, of course, are disgusting and awful, but when Trump does it, it's okay. But you know, when other people that they've enabled, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, do it, well, maybe we should speak out.
When he was speaking to Republican Jewish leaders, Donald Trump said,
"Yeah, that's what."
No room likes to renegotiate more than this room. Why? Yeah, he did things like, I mean, obviously Charlottesville. Very good, fine people on both sides, the Nazi side and the non-Nazi side. The Confederacy side that loved the Confederate generals and the slavery they were killing people to keep, and the non-Confederacy side. We have very fine people on all sorts of sides, including the Nazi side. That's who Donald Trump is. Kevin McCarthy is still kissing his ass, still going down to Florida to meet with him, etc. So look, guys, this is super simple. I actually don't care much what Kevin McCarthy says, and here's why. There is no leader in the Republican Party other than Donald Trump. So the rest of them are just clones. They're sad little clones. They're like those stormtroopers, right? They all have masks on, it doesn't matter. They all look the same, they all act the same, and they all follow orders. So, and then he blames the Democrat Party. It's the Democratic Party for anti-Semitism, as he has the most virulent anti-Semite in his party. He's theoretically condemning her as he's hitting Democrats for no reason, unrelated, right? And she believes in Jewish space lasers that start fires. We're not having this conversation. And so the second reason why I don't care is because the hardcore Republican voters have lost their minds. So they all, over half of them believe that Donald Trump is still president. They say he's the true president right now. Over half of Republicans. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So you're not gonna convince them. And the rest of us know the only people that those statements are relevant for are the people in Washington who still take politics, treat politicians with credibility, right? So the CNNs of the world will go, oh, what did Kevin McCarthy say? I wonder, oh, that is a valid point. They said this, the Democrats said that. They said this, the Democrats said that. No, you should dismiss Kevin McCarthy out of hand. He's a loser, servant of Donald Trump, and none of the rest of us care. The rational people on earth don't think that the Democrats made Marjorie Taylor Greene talk about the Holocaust. She said it was very like, look, Marjorie Taylor Greene, we're skipping over this too much. Before she got into Congress, she said that Nancy Pelosi was guilty of treason, and the punishment for treason was execution, and that she should get that. She called for the execution of Nancy Pelosi. We're still having a conversation. This is a party of monsters, and everyone outside of Washington, D.C. knows that.
In fact, I mean, I'd love to show you a different video of Marjorie Taylor Greene from 2020, where she also weighs in on the topic of Hitler. Oh, what did she have to say about that? Let's watch.
This is no statement on Joe Johnson outside. This is a statement based on all of our statues and monuments across our country. You see, I think that we have to preserve them, not because we support any statue in particular or that we support what may have happened, but it's to preserve our history, because our history is our lessons, and our lessons is how we learn to make our choices going forward. So I think that's very important. We're seeing situations where Christopher Columbus, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, all kinds of statues are being attacked. And it seems to be just an effort to take down history. And whether I see a statue that may be something that I would fully disagree with, like Adolf Hitler, maybe a statue of Satan himself, I would not want to say take it down. But again, it's so that I could tell my children and teach others about who these people are, what they did, and what they may be about.
You can teach your children about all these awful people without having a massive statue of the said person on public property. You know, I know it's a crazy thought, but maybe have those statues in the proper context, like in a museum where you could actually learn about them in the proper context. When you have a massive statue of someone like Hitler in front of a government building, it appears that that government is celebrating that awful person. You get it? I mean, I'm talking to not the smartest person on the planet, so anyway.
But honestly, it's most Republicans, so they can't understand simple concepts. We put statues in public in order to celebrate those people. That is why there are no Hitler statues in public, because we do not want to celebrate him. There are no statues of Osama bin Laden in America because he was our enemy and we do not want to celebrate him, and he was a terrible person. So by the way, when you have Confederate generals on, they were our enemies. They attacked America. They killed more American soldiers than any enemy has ever killed. And they wanted to imprison fellow Americans like black folks and keep them as slaves forever. They hated the idea of America and democracy. So you should not celebrate them in public. And so the Hitler analogy is not that bad. She's just on the wrong side of it. And that's why a lot of Nazis showed up to Charlottesville to protect those Confederate statues.
Yeah, exactly.
And instead of chanting about the Confederacy, they chanted, "The Jews will not replace us." By the way, if you're wondering why did they do that if they were going to? The Confederacy is totally unrelated to the Holocaust. Why did they chant, "The Jews will not replace us"? Why does Marjorie Taylor Greene obsess with the Jews, right? Obsessed with the Holocaust and their lasers and this and that, and all the insane things that she thinks. Because if you follow the rabbit hole all the way down, I've interviewed people that work at this network have interviewed people that are rabidly right wing, whether they're QAnon or not. And at the end of the rabbit hole is the Jews run the world and the Jews are the real problem. So that is what the cancer that underlies right wing ideology. That's why they keep going back to that issue. That's why it's both hilarious and horrific that Kevin McCarthy, in his nonsense cover-up statement, says the Democrat Party is the problem. No, your party has a giant tumor inside of it of a huge percent of Republicans who believe that the Jews run the world and are the real problem. Now, why do you think every synagogue attack is from right wingers? So they say, oh yeah, no, the Democrats don't like Israeli policy. Wait, what does that have to do with anything? The right wing murdered Jews in synagogues. They did Charlottesville, etc. That's the cancer. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.